Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be doing a gameplay video for Selesnya Rabbits. It's been a top-performing archetype on the ladder, and it's been around for a little while, so this is by no means a new thing. It's just to help people kind of understand the archetype, talk about where I'm, messed up. And I had a really long day today, so definitely made some mistakes, and lots to learn, lots to focus on, right? So Selesnya Rabbits is a go wide strategy. So whereas Rakdos Aggro yesterday kind of folded to 2 points of interaction, like we saw, Selesnya Rabbits thrives if you're coming up against mono black with the go for the throats and things like that. But it struggles against the sweepers. So you're looking like temporary lockdown, that sort of thing is particularly hard. So this one I decided to keep because I've got 2 Pop Patch recruits, and if we draw into white, it's a pretty decent hand. We can go into the Valley Quest Caller if we draw white. Otherwise, we just play another Pop Patch Recruit, and then we can turn 3 hop to it into Valley Quest Caller, pumping up the board. Drawing the Warren War Leader here is not particularly good, especially against the mirror match. I decided to offer the trade against the Valley Might Caller. I'm a little bit surprised that they decided to take that, because the Valley Might Caller represents a larger threat over time. And so the mirror match here, they have both colors. Puts them, in my opinion, quite a bit ahead. And so here, turn 3, missing land. We could kind of stick with it if we really wanted to, but since it's the mirror match, I'd rather just move on to the next one. So I'm going to try to do more of these gameplay videos throughout the weeks when I can find time. Just to kind of talk about like what I'm looking for in the opening hand, any tips that I can give to do well with it. Do keep in mind though that it's like a small sample size, so like if I lose like 8 matches in a row, that happens with even the best of decks. So it's always one of those things that I feel bad when I take a good deck and I don't do well with it. So we've got the Razor Verge Thicket here. I decided to keep it because I've got the Valley Quest Caller. I'm looking for the Valley Quest Caller, the Valley Might Caller, and Pop Patch Recruit, and the Phineas Ace Archer. Kind of the 4 cards that I'm looking for, like I mentioned in my Best of 1 guide. I decided to keep the Phineas on top here because we're going to play the War Leader, and then on turn 5, if I draw a 3-drop, then I'd like to be able to double spell. So it's thin. We'll probably just go War Leader into War Leader. Right now, seize the spoils from the opponent means that they're on 4-color Dinosaurs or Jurassic Park, and so that means that they are likely to have the turn 4 Zombify. Hopefully they don't. And then, lo and behold, we actually did draw into a 3-drop with the Pop Patch Recruit, so we can go Phineas Ace Archer and Pop Patch Recruit. Summoning the 1/1 here actually hits for more damage than giving the board +1/+1, since it grows our Beauregard Mentor and spawns a 2/2, so it hits for 1 additional damage. Look for moments like that when you have the Valley Quest Caller over just pumping the board. And they don't go for the Zombify, they go for the Rakdos Joins Up, and they hit a Galta. And then Galta comes in as a 14/14, and they slam Vitali, the Vaultborn Tyrant, and the Trumpeting Carnosaur. So we have bad mana variants into combo deck hitting their combo. So kind of off to a rough start for Selesnya Rabbits today. But like I mentioned, if I went 0-5, it doesn't mean it's a bad deck. And that's what I hope to encourage you to see it more from a game design perspective about where why the decks are matched up the way that they are. So here we've got a hop to it on turn 3 into Double Knight Errant of Eos. I don't like that sort of starting hand. I want to start on turn 1. This is a much better hand, and I'm going to gamble that we're not up against the sweeper and put back the Knight Errant of Eos. And then we could start with the Seasoned Wearing Guard here and then do the Pop Patch Recruit. I kind of like getting the Pop Patch Recruit down when you have something like the Phineas or the Valley Quest Caller, because if they go to kill the Quest Caller or the Phineas, then you get that +1/+1. So it does curve out better if we had maybe done the Seasoned Wearing Guard first, because it could attack as a 1/2, and then the Pop Patch Recruit we could play on 3. But we're looking like we can double spell and just dump hand here, and looks like we're up against Insidious Roots. So, like yesterday, I can't believe I completely punted that game. Speaking of punts, so I was gonna play the Valley Might Caller and then the Valley Quest Caller, which is the correct order to do it. And for some reason, I thought I would get a scry off of the Valley Quest Caller, but it is not frogs. Keep that in mind. Should have played it the other way around. But yesterday, somebody pointed out that I had lethal with the Cacophony Scamp, and I just completely missed it. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to learn. We're trying to be better Magic the Gathering players, and also just I love Magic the Gathering. So it's one of those things that like I can nerd out about this all day. So our opponent is in kind of a pickle. They're definitely not doing very well. They finally get the Insidious Roots on the board, but they have a single green untapped, which means that they are pretty much toast here. I decided to play the Seasoned Wearing Guard, so it gets pumped by the Phineas Ace Archer, and then I'm going to put the Sheltered by Ghosts on Phineas. Because right now, Phineas is just pumping my board way too much, and getting rid of their Insidious Roots, I think, is just really the nail in the coffin. So, kind of an oppressive moment that Roots really couldn't do much. And they scoop it. So one of the downsides with Selesnya Rabbits is that it does not have a lot of interaction. It is a very linear strategy, similar to Selesnya Auras, where you're just kind of asking your opponent, hey, can you answer this? And if they're playing sweepers, the answer is yes. If they're not playing sweepers, the answer is no. And so I can see some complaints if Selesnya Rabbits, at least it has kind of a... It's not an incredibly budget deck, right? So it requires a lot of rares from Bloomburrow, which kind of protects it from being just every deck on the meta. But it is performing quite well, and I expect to see more of it. And so next turn here, so we had the Valley Might Caller again. That's one I'm looking for in my opening hand. We've got the Valley Quest Caller to follow up. We could do the Valley Might Caller into the Seasoned Wearing Guard if we wanted to pump the Valley Might Caller to a 3/3. But by playing the Valley Quest Caller, we get more of those scries, which helps us prevent from flooding, because right now our hand's a little bit prone to flooding. We drew the Hop to It, which is a nice one to follow up on turn 3 anyway. Might actually justify playing the Valley Might Caller into the Wearing Guard over the Quest Caller, because of getting the triple +3/+3 on Hop to It for both Valley Might Callers. So that was, I played a little too quickly there. I should have thought about what I drew. I was kind of in my mind already ready to play the Valley Quest Caller. And Torch the Tower, they could have still killed it as a 3/3, but they would have had to sack something, so they probably would have killed the other Valley Might Caller that was a 2/2. So right now we would have a 6/6 Trampler. Had I gone the other line. Attacking with the Valley Quest Caller because I'm not going to be blocking with it, since the Marauding Mako is going to get bigger this turn, and probably quite a bit bigger. Oh, a braid hurts. A braid hurts, but they don't really want to trade this for 2 1/1s, so that's nice. And we can just dump our hand into the Knight Errant of Eos. And this is where the Knight Errant of Eos is going to be missed a little bit during rotation, because we are going to lose it in a couple of weeks with Edge of Eternities. And it's just nice for this moment where you've kind of like played out your entire hand full of 1s and 2-drops, and you just need to kind of refuel. And they've got to Torch the Tower here. It's fine. Yeah, I think we could have actually ramped to a bigger one. A bigger Valley Might Caller would have been punished, though, by bounce. So again, there's pros and cons to a lot of different lines. Just kind of trying to talk through some of them. So I decided to go for the double War Leader there because we are on 4 mana, not 5. I think if I was on 5 and could draw the land, it would be tempting to double spell to get the double pump. Because this deck, the Izzet discard deck, Izzet Monument, Or I guess this is the Izzet Cauldron deck. Can get off to a really crazy fast start. So we draw the land, we slam the Warren War Leader. We're definitely going to pump the board here, which is going to give us 3 4/4s and 3 2/2s. If they just block the 2/2s, they're dead. So they have to trade something on their board, and we're okay with taking casualties, and they scoop. So again, you can kind of see how this deck was resilient to the fact that they had the Torch the Towers and the Abrades, right? Didn't really care that, whereas the strategy yesterday would have struggled against that, Selesnya Rabbits almost thrives when that's what your opponent is spending their mana doing. All right, so we've got Valley Might Callers into Valley Quest Callers. Looks great, looks fantastic. The only downside here is that I have to name green for Frog off of the Cavern of Souls so that I can actually play out the Valley Might Callers. It's a little prohibitive on the Beauregard Mentor. Wouldn't be able to actually play the Beauregard Mentor. And opponent here is playing Blackleaf Cliffs into Hired Claw, so it was probably some form of Rakdos aggro, and Selesnya Rabbits can struggle against the aggro builds, which is why you have the Sheltered by Ghosts. So if we hit the Sheltered by Ghosts in this matchup, we'll be okay. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit of a race, and it does help that we're on the play. But there's a couple of things that will just kind of freeze us in our tracks, and one of them is Screaming Nemesis. And they reveal that they're actually Rakdos Lizards. So now we've got Gev. This should be an easy match. The Lizards can get off to a really fast start, but especially on the draw, we're quite advantaged here. So Warren War Leader for 4 can't play it unless 2 turns from now. And right now I can't play the Beauregard Mentor, so I'm looking at just playing Valley Might Caller, and I'd like to find better tempo. Here I was debating about whether or not to trade the Valley Quest Caller, and I don't want to do that for Gev. I'd rather keep my +2/+2 kind of thing going. And they've had enough of that, and they scoop. So off to a little bit of a rocky start. Now we're cruising along. Such is magic. You win some, you lose some. But I think the Selesnya Rabbits deck is pretty fun. I guess I'm biased because I think every Magic deck is fun, but there's something about the flavor of just like beating them up with bunny rabbits that is somewhat satisfying. So again, showcasing right here that I'm looking for the Pop Hatch Recruit and the Valley Quest Caller. And since we have those, I was debating about, like, is there any reason to not play the Cavern of Souls first? And since we have the Forest, I don't think there is, because if we didn't have the Forest, then we wouldn't be able to play the Frog if we drew it. So if we had a Cavern of Souls and a Plains, I think I would have let out with the it would have been more tempting to lead out with the Plains. But then you can't play the Pop Hatch Recruit. I don't know. But we could play it on 3. So that's kind of one of the decision points you have to make in this deck, is whether or not to play the Pop Hatch Recruit out on 1. Again, if you have something good like the 2-drop, it's usually a good idea to do it. We drew the Valley Might Caller. Again, we have the green mana. We can't cast Hop to it because we don't actually have white for non-creature spells. So our Sheltered by Ghosts and our Hop to it, we can't cast right now. But as long as they don't kill anything, then we can tap everything to convoke out the Knight Errant of Eos, which I think is worth doing here. It could get counterspelled because they do have blue and white available. So they have a Get Lost. They're targeting the Valley Quest Caller. I decided to pump the Valley Might Caller here to spread out the threats. And Knight Errant of Eos hits Valley Might Caller, which was a little bit of a bad draw. And I think right here I make a mistake. So my opponent hasn't really done much, right? Soul Guide Lantern, like a Get Lost. Their only way back into this is if they have a Wrath. And so instead of popping the map tokens and looking for white, which would help me get my Hop to it, my Sheltered by Ghosts unlocked, I decided to develop the board here by playing the Valley Might Caller and the Beauregard Mentor. And it's a little bit of a gamble, right? Because like if they have the temporary lockdown and I get to keep the Knight Errant of Eos, it's okay. But then I'm losing that value on the map tokens, and it was probably better, since I know I'm playing up against like Jeskai control, to because I only push 2 additional damage, right? And I don't think I need this many threats if I'm playing around a sweeper on the following turn. So like how in Rakdos aggro you play around your opponent's single point interaction, so you don't get 2 for 1 with your combat trick, you shouldn't deploy as many threats to the board, because you end up in situations like this where pretty much Jeskai now is in this game when I could have deployed 2 threats after they did the sweeper and made them at least made it have a better fighting chance. So be better than me. Don't deploy all of your threats against control. But anyway, it's one of those things that like I don't know exactly what drives me to make Magic the Gathering videos. I just like sharing my love of the game, and like it's never gonna be a full-time job, right? Like the amount of time that I have to actually do this is dwindling, right? Like I know in a year or 2 from now, I probably won't be able to do this as much as I do these days. So I kind of just like enjoy it while it lasts. So here we're Elegant Parlor, probably means that we're up against control. I would have said Jeskai control before the Boilerworks got revealed there. And with the Boilerworks, my thought was some form of like Naya, the Naya Yuna decks that are focusing on bringing back enchantments from the graveyard. And then once I see the Lightning Helix, I'm thinking now it's some form of just Boros control. So again, against the control matchups, my Knight Errant of Eos is going to be the best thing here, which is why it's included, to help improve the deck against sweepers and removal. Screaming Nemesis is a bit of a problem, like I mentioned before, when it was actually Rakdos Lizards. The Screaming Nemesis, we kind of need to hit either a threat that can go over the top of it, or we need to hit our Sheltered by Ghosts. So Hop to it is going to get lost from the Knight Errant of Eos anyway, so I put it on the bottom. And I'm just kind of hoping to get a better hit than just the one Seasoned Wearing. So opponent could play something like Temporary Lockdown. That would be pretty painful. A second Screaming Nemesis is pretty bad too for us. Burrowguard Mentor, we could attack with it and trade it against both Screaming Nemesis, but then we functionally give them our board. Right? They kill the Valley Quest Caller. They kill the Seasoned Wearing. It's not a particularly good attack. Or we could attack with just the Mentor, and they can block it with a single one, and then they take 3, and then they trade it, which is also not a very good attack. Maybe it's acceptable. Maybe I should have attacked with the Burrowguard Mentor there. Let me know what you guys think. Would you have swung the Mentor there? I couldn't tell if it was worth the investment. I decided not to, partly because I'm like waiting for the Hail Mary of hitting the Sheltered by Ghosts. Because if we could hit the Sheltered by Ghosts, or if we could get the Burrowguard Mentor to be a 7/7, I'd feel better about it. And Joshua coming in here, and we're just kind of flooding a little bit. So I decided to scoop it up here. It's a little bit preemptive, but now my Burrowguard Mentor really is answered, where they could even block with the 3/4 and the 3/3, and it's just not doing very much. So that might have been a little bit of an early scoop, but against control, like if you start getting out to turns 5 and turn 6, like you can quality of life scoop it up, you know? But I should have played it out just for my own curiosity's sake of what opponent was doing, right? Like, wanted to see more of their deck. So looking back on that one, I was a little tilted. Like I said, it was a long day. All right, so we've got Seasoned Wearing Guard into Phineas. Again, Phineas is one of the ones that I'm looking for in my opening hand, and Seasoned Wearing Guard is okay as a turn 1. It's not as good as the other turn 1s in the deck, but it's still acceptable. And we're up against Monored, the Hired Claw. And Hired Claw, again, Monored can be a bit of a problem for this deck. So what I could do here is I could turn 2 Sheltered by Ghosts against Mono-Red, and I probably should. Decided to go for playing out the Phineas, where I could block the 2-1 with the 1-2 if they do attack. That may have been a mistake. But what I really wanted to do was get the Sheltered by Ghosts onto a target that was a little bit bigger. Because Seasoned Wearing Guard and Phineas both don't grow particularly well. And so they had the Burst Lightning. Now I could trade my 1-2 against the 2-1, but then I have nothing. I'd have a Night-Errant Bios that I can't play and a Season of the Burrow. So kind of just having 2 dead cards in the hand, 2 bricks, if you will. And so here I have to play the Shelter by Ghosts on a Seasoned Wearing Guard, making a 2-2. Get rid of the Hired Claw, I think is the most damaging thing on the board right there. And I decided to swing for the life, which made me perfectly at 10 so that they could hit me with Hitsukus to win the game. So Mono Red is a weakness for Selesnya Rabbits. It's usually not that bad of a match, especially when you have the Shelter by Ghosts. All right, so our opening hand, we have Paw Patch Recruit and Valley Might Caller. It's excellent. I like to lead out with the Valley Might Caller instead of the Paw Patch Recruit. Again, Paw Patch Recruit I like for the 2-drops if you have something, a spicy 2 you want to protect. And then we can just curve out here. And this is pretty nice. That's like the perfect start for Selesnya Rabbits, so they scoop it up. So a lot of the games, like I mentioned with the Selesnya Rabbits decks, are kind of just like blowouts, right? Like your opponent kind of struggling to have an answer at all, or they have it. So I can see why some people would consider it to be less interesting than playing a different archetype. But so here we've got the Paw Patch Recruit into Phineas. And again, we could start with the Seasoned Wearing Guard and then do Phineas and then Paw Patch Recruit. And I think I decided to do that because I don't have a really good 3-drop in hand. And I can immediately pump the Paw Patch Recruits the turn that they come down. It's a little bit more prone to the Phineas just getting shot, right? But since I decided to go that route, I'm sticking with it. Here against the red Verge land, I kind of wish I had done the Paw Patch Recruit. But this is going to work out nicely to just play the Offspring side of things. Pumps the Seasoned Wearing Guard as a 3-2 that becomes a 4-3 when it's attacking because of the Phineas, and then we get a card draw. So it's a decent line. It's a little bit more prone to getting interaction that kind of blocks it. So Invasion of Urgamon means that we're up against 4-color dinosaurs, and is one of the ones that I think will be replaced by Rakdos Reanimator come rotation. I'll be doing my rotation video this Sunday. And so the debate here is whether or not we do the hop to it because they all get pumped, or we just go for lethal. I decide to go for lethal. But Invasion of Urgamon's rotating at the end of July. And the Invasion of Urgamon is what justifies you being in the dinosaur space as opposed to Rakdos. because it enables you to have a turn 3 Zombify. So, you know, you've got a similar clock with Selesnya Rabbits if all goes well. I think that was a turn 4 win. We were on the play. All right, so we've got Phineas. It's a thin hand, but then we've got the Sheltered by Ghosts. Excuse me. Whew. Sorry to sneeze in your ear. So, yeah, we're just playing out Phineas, and then I guess throwing Sheltered by Ghosts on it because we don't have much else to do with this hand. And just kind of didn't draw into our 2s or 3s. Like, if we'd drawn a hop to it, it would have been amazing. I decided to play the Sheltered by Ghosts here on an empty board, and part of it's because I don't have anything else going on in the hand, but also protecting it from something like Elspeth's Smite. Since next turn we're going to be doing the Warren Warleader with the Cavern of Souls so that they can't counterspell it. Play an Overlord of the Flood Pits. And as far as Dispersal, not totally familiar with what the opponent is doing here. And just decided to play the Warren Warleader. We're going to make the 1/1 token. Get it pumped up. Love the versatility of it. That was a pretty sweet turn. So, temporary lockdown hurts a little bit. We still have a nice big Warren Warleader. I also have a Sheltered by Ghosts. So what I could do is I could Sheltered by Ghosts the temporary lockdown. And I think I like that more than just playing the Knight Errant of Eos, especially because we can use the Oak Hollow Village to then pump our board with everything that entered the battlefield. I could Convoke the Knight Errant of Eos here. And maybe I should have. Because if they play a Sweeper next turn, it's pretty bad. I decided to attack, though, because otherwise I don't get the counter. And I thought the +2/+2, like, I felt like I have enough lethal threats on board that it feels decent. Temporary lockdown gets rid of a fair amount of stuff here, gives them the Overlord of the Flood Pits. Second temporary lockdown was pretty brutal, so first sweeper we managed okay, second sweeper less so. So the issue with the line that I decided to take was that now the Knight Errant of Eos is kind of just a 4/4 for 5, which is pretty brutal. Here, hopefully we can force them to just do a chump block, and they still have a lot of cards in their hand, so not feeling particularly good, but we do have 2 lethal threats. If the Knight Errant of Eos resolves. And they have no more lies, so we have 1 lethal threat. Digging for an answer with Roiling Dragonstorm. I wonder if this is actually a Azorius Omniscience deck. It's like we saw the Afara's Dispersal, we saw the temporary lockdowns, we saw the Roiling Dragonstorm. Deciding to bring in the Overlord, like, you do that sometimes in best of 3. Make it more of the creature-centric build instead of the graveyard-centric build. Since we're losing Abuelo's Awakening, they might be exploring that. And either way, they're off it. All right, and we've got Valley Quest Caller into Hop to It into War Leader. I like that curve. Doesn't start on turn 1, but it's a pretty spicy curve if we just hit lands. And this time we do have the Razorbird's Thicket to give us the white for Hop to It. And then Cavern of Souls gives us the double white for Warren War Leader. So as long as we can just curve out here, feel optimistic. But the Izzet Cauldron deck can definitely get off to a fast start as well. So the fact that we're on the draw could be a problem here. Okay, Winter Night Stories. Let's see if they discard the Vivi. Excuse me. A little bit later than I usually do this. So they discard the Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Usually you're supposed to discard Vivi and hold on to the Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Blocking the Fear of Missing Out here. Playing the Hop to It. Not going to block with the Valley Quest Caller. Shelter by Ghosts I think is reasonable to keep here. Just because we have land 4 and we might need it to slow the pressure. So Prof's Eidetic Memory into a second Fear of Missing Out, which they're going to be able to trigger into Delirium, is a little bit scary. Okay, so they didn't get the Delirium trigger, and my thoughts here were that I should block the Marauding Mako because it's trading for 2 of my rabbits, and same thing with the Fear of Missing Out. I probably should have gotten rid of the Fear of Missing Out because if I use the Sheltered by Ghosts, it's gets an ETB trigger, whereas the Marauding Mako comes back as a 1/1. So looking back on that, I probably should have blocked the Fear of Fear of Missing Out. The Fear of Making Out, yeah. And so here, like, if I play the Warren War Leader and we just go aggressive, I don't think I'm winning that battle. So I decided to go a little bit off tempo here and try to slow down their board. Because remember, the Fear of Missing Outs get to swing multiple combats, and then the Prof's Eidetic Memory triggers at the beginning of each combat. So without getting rid of the Fear of Missing Out, it's kind of scary business. And this is definitely one where, like, hindsight, looking back on it, I wish I had played it a little bit differently. Because we could have just gone for Hop to It and tried to chump block. And, like, tried to race them. I haven't played enough against this deck with Selesnya Rabbits to really know what's the right answer. But again, one of the downsides to this as opposed to Boros is the Valley Quest Caller isn't particularly big. So they don't have the Vivi. They're just going for the +1/+1 on the Fear of Missing Out. And I was a little bit surprised that they did this because they took away their Delirium. But I guess they wanted the +1/+1 counter. Into the Floodmaw here was pretty brutal. Because then they get another Fear of Missing Out, triggers their Delirium, and it enables their attack. So right here, we have to decide, do we want to block 4 damage, or do we want to block 5 damage, or do we want to block both? So I decided to take the 4 and then block the 5 with a 1/1. And it's like Urbrask's Forge, right? Prof's Eidetic Memory and Urbrask's Forge, they both trigger at the beginning of combat. So if there's multiple combats, they can get out of hand. So the Fear of Missing Outs are pretty big targets. And that's why I think that time when I didn't block was a mistake. And the Knight Errant of Eos here was definitely a mistake. I should not have played that. Because at this point, there's not much that I can do to get back into this against what they have. They're just going to steamroll me. They have lethal on board. All they have to do is put the Prophecy Memories on the Fear of Missing Out from the Winter Night Stories, and I can't block both of them. So I think actually they get in for, what, at least like 15 damage? Or maybe at least 12? Math? Because the Prophecy Memory triggers again, too. And I'm forced to chump block, so they can't lose from this point. And here I'm just being kind of impatient with my opponent. I get so spoiled because, like, in Mythic, people play so much faster because you're just trying to get your games per hour up way high. And I think they were just trying to, just making sure to not screw up. Anyway, no way I can block wins there. So anyway, you can kind of see the Izzet Prowess deck, the Izzet Cauldron deck, and seems like a pretty popular deck post-ban. Curious to see how it goes into rotation. There's a couple of decks out there right now that are kind of, you know, giving it its own hard time. So we'll see how the meta settles just in time for rotation. So again, we have my favorite card, Paw Patch Recruit. And then we've got a Burrowguard Mentor, which is the better target for the Sheltered by Ghosts, because the Burrowguard Mentor gets bigger, just like Oros Auras. So I'm going to play out the Burrowguard Mentor. I should have played out the Burrowguard Mentor before I attacked, because if they had something like Elspeth's Smite, I'd want to be able to put the +1/+1 counter on the Burrowguard Mentor. So little mistakes here and there. And looks like we're up against mono white tokens, which this deck can struggle against because of the sweepers. So we hit the hop to it, which makes the Burrowguard Mentor absolutely massive. With the 1/1 there, I didn't really feel like trading the Paw Patch Recruit in case they didn't have the temporary lockdown. If they have the temporary lockdown here, it's pretty bad for us. But because they didn't block with the 1/1, kind of makes me think that they don't have the sweeper. So here I decide, let's just play our threats, and if they have an answer, they have an answer. And Burrowguard Mentor into Sheltered by Ghosts, get rid of the Enduring Innocence, and then probably should just swing all. I think I decided to keep back the Paw Patch Recruit again because I wasn't sure that they had the sweeper. But this is usually a pretty aggressive curve out. This is the sort of curve out that would do fine against mono red because of that stabilization off of Burrowguard Mentor. But deciding to hold back the Paw Patch Recruit here was probably a little bit conservative on my part. It's not like it changes all that much to have them have what? It could have been at 2. It could have been at 2 life. But drawing into the land after the sweeper, we could try, but with them rebuilding the life off of the Enduring Innocence, drawing cards off of Carrot Cake and whatnot, the win rate on that is pretty low. So just going to scoop it up. And so I hope that kind of showcases where the deck's strengths and weaknesses are. Obviously, it wasn't the best run of Selesnya Rabbits for me, personally, going 6 and 7. But it's not a bad deck. I can promise you that. So remember to click like and subscribe. Hope you like this sort of thing. Let me know in the comments below. Love to hear your guys' feedback. And I will continue to kind of just play the daily gameplay videos. We'll see how it goes. I'm curious because, like I said, I only have about a year left of doing this anyway, so might as well test the waters. And have a wonderful evening, everybody, and I will catch you, at the very least, I'll see you again on Sunday for the rotation guide for Edge of Eternities.